I want to introduce you to somebody. His name is Rudy. He's been in IT for close to 30 years. Warner Brothers, financial sector, now managing infrastructure at a law firm. Smart guy, knows his stuff cold. He never really used Claude. So I sat him down, shared my screen, and we worked through a real problem he was dealing with at work. Not a demo, not a fake example, an actual permission inheritance issue he needed for a script. And you watch his brain turn on in real time. This is the first episode of a series I'm building specifically for people like Rudy, technical people who know enough to get real value out of Claude, but haven't had anyone show them how to actually set it up and use it right. No hand-holding, no starting from zero, just the stuff that matters. This is Chuck, and you're watching the ITXP. I hope you enjoy the episode. There we are. Look at you in the dark.
This is in my dungeon, man.
Let me start up a new tab here. All right. So we started the conversation a while ago and how you wanted to learn more AI stuff. And I was like, look, you know what? Claude's the way to go. And we had that conversation.
Yeah.
In terms of, I've been using Claude for a while now. Geez, I think about a year now with Claude. Okay. And I'm a paid subscriber. I think I immediately went to the $20 a month plan because I was like, you know, why not? Whatever. Okay. It goes on a business account anyway. And you know, we had talked about you wanting to get more into this stuff and just really deeper dive into this, right? So what I figured we'd do is talk about for you from your perspective, right? What it is that you want to get out of this, right? And we'll build the entire series out of that, right? So from an introduction perspective for the audience, right? How long have you been in IT? You know, what do you do day to day? You know, what do you think about AI tools now? And what's one thing, right? We'll start with one because we can go on forever. What's one thing that you do from a week-to-week basis, right, that you could see potentially Claude would do for you?
Sure. So I mean, I've been in IT for close to 30 some odd years. Started out, you know, just kind of doing some kind of like contract work. Ended up at that Warner Brothers, fell into more infrastructure because that was the need. You know, and I was, you know, I took to that very quickly. You know, be managing a lot of the servers, infrastructure, that sort of thing. Some networking from Warner Brothers, kind of landed into the financial space where I was, you know, kind of strictly just doing what I had been doing for Warner Brothers, just like, you know, SAN, virtualization, that sort of thing. And then that transitioned to where I am now at the law firm, where I'm just doing a lot of the, you know, infrastructure for them, that sort of thing. But, you know, for me, you know, law firms tend to move very, very slowly. But I've seen a change, especially with our firm. They're kind of like opening up more to you know, embracing cloud, embracing AI concepts. You know, especially for some of their lawyers, they're using Harvey, probably because other firms have adopted it. You know, they're not trailblazers in any sense of the word. So if you know, their peer firms have adopted that sort of thing, they're gonna do it too. And you know, just today, you know, there was an email that is putting Claude out to the firm, to the, you know, well, you know, limitedly, but so for me, I think it makes sense. It makes sense to kind of not just for me, you know, from a career standpoint, but from you know, from the firm standpoint as well, you know, to provide some sort of support. And you know, there's aspects of that you know, make sense, and it's helpful with regards to, you know, phone. Give me one second. It's helpful for me with regards to, you know, some aspects of coding, and also some, you know, some repetitive aspects, you know, that I may need, you know, specifically if I'm needing to, you know, gather a monthly report for management, you know, things that are kind of like, you know, repetitive, and I don't have to manually do it. And also some aspects of code where it's I know there's not going to be a mistake if it's done in terms of some sort of automation, that sort of thing.
Good. Is there anything that you could pick from like just this is what I want to work on? This is what I want to try to get Claude to help me with day one.
Yeah, there is a request recently that manually it would be impossible to do, and I'm going to explain why. There was a request for a particular share or folder, or whatever. They want to put in a group that is that denies access to the everyone group, right?
Yep.
So you put that in, you put you're going to do that, but the issue is because the underlying subfolders are not inheriting, right? It's if I try to do that from the root folder, right, it's going to go ahead and try to touch those folders. But when you go to the subfolders are not going to accept them, right? Which means that you have to touch each individual folder, which is kind of annoying, right? I was able to do this with a particular subset of folders, and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this again. It doesn't make any sense, So I figure, if I can get the Claude or whatever to help me put together a script that will run through the entire share, preferably something that's optimized performance wise to get it done quickly.
Right.
In addition to also taking account for long file names. Well, and then adding this particular group share, right, to deny or to a group this AD group name to deny, and also to make sure that it doesn't interrupt the existing permissions, right? Because those need to remain intact. So that's really what I'm kind of looking for.
Okay, good. So, what's your experience with Claude so far?
Very, very limited.
Very limited. Okay.
It's not like I haven't touched other AI before, but Claude not not too deep.
So I'm going to go through. So let me share my screen here real quick. I'm going to go through. I just want to share the. I don't want to share my screen. I'm going to share just the app itself, and I haven't used Teams in forever, so bear with me. Here we go. Share this, and I should just be able to see my Claude session. So I'm going to start with the way we're going to position this series, right? We're going to start with the UI because that's where most people have their first introduction to Claude, and then we're going to move to Claude Code as the series progresses, and then we'll go back to Claude Cowork, which is the new thing that people are raving about, and how it does a lot of automation itself. It's kind of like that open claw concept, and where you give the LLM access to your desktop so it can run different things. I tested that out a while ago when it first came out. It's great. It actually does a lot of things, but it's a little bit slow, and it actually eats up a lot of the usage for your plan. But what I'm showing here now is how you can actually check out your usage. And you'll see I'm on the Pro plan. This is the $20 a month plan.
Yeah.
And if we go to, this over here. If we go to the different plan settings, right? So if I go to here and I go to billing and I go to adjust plan, there's really, now you see I pay annually, so it's only $17 a month instead of the $20 a month. And then you have the max plan, which is $100 a month. You get 20 times more usage, right? It's really if you're living and breathing in Claude and you're actually generating money from it, right? From my perspective, right? You're generating money from it, and it's something where Cowork is actually going to be more useful for you because you have the higher limits. And what I found when using Claude Cowork, and again we'll get to that later, is with the Pro plan, I was churning through a lot of my credits like within a day, right? And then I'd have to wait and kind of do things. So for you, as someone that's very technical, the Pro plan makes sense because the free plan, you're going to get limited very, very quickly. All right. So when you're thinking about going into Claude, I bought it out an annual plan. I saved $3 a month. It was a no brainer for me.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing is you can actually, when you go to usage, you can actually set up extra usage. So if you're using something like Co-work or even Claude Code, and where you're just churning out different tasks for it to do, like in Claude Code, I had it build out 4 or 5 different websites for me. I was using my weekly limits a lot, and I actually triggered the overage. So you can actually set up an overage monthly limit. So I set it up to $50, right? Because obviously, affluent people here, right? We have real jobs and the families to support. So $50 a month is good, but it's there as a safety mechanism, or like you're in the thick of things, and you really just want to churn something out. I'm going to hit my overage, and let's just do it, right?
Right.
So you have those options to set up overage, but I want to kind of go through UI a little bit because you'll see a lot of different things here, especially since you kind of use other LLMs and things like that. I just want to explain to you how I use it in Claude, because everybody's mileage varies, right? So chats is what everybody's useful for. Chat is what everybody's familiar with, I should say. Here are all my chats, and you'll see I have a lot of different things going on here, right? From my one-on-ones to my corporate hardcore series, to writing styles and things like that. That's where I leverage chat, right?
Okay.
And the reason why I leverage chat in the UI is because it also allows me to do it on my phone, right? Because you and I commute, right? We're either on a train or we're just sitting in the conference room in a meeting and things like that. I can pick up my chat from my phone and continue whatever thought I had in terms of the conversation. So that's why I like the web UI, and I always direct people to the web UI first.
Okay.
Claude Code is going to be something where you're actually doing executing different things, like executing scripts or doing your what I use Claude Code for when I first installed it was to organize my GitHub repos. Right. So I've had GitHub for like 10 years now. I had stuff in there when I used to work at the law firm with you, right? There were like PowerShell scripts in there, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about all this stuff. So I use Claude Code to organize all that, clone everything locally, organize it into a nice folder structure, and push the changes back up. So now I have, when I launch VS Code, I have Claude Code. I had to create a script for me to just pull everything down, right? Because now I use Claude Code on this home computer, and I use it on my MacBook, right? Yeah. So when I'm out, I'm doing some work, I push the code up to GitHub. I come home, I launch VS Code, it pulls everything down, and I'm in sync, right? Previously, you could have done that without Claude Code, right? You just write scripts, you just do it. Claude Code makes it easier, right? It just makes it easier for you. And then lastly, with Claude Cowork is I tell Claude Cowork that, hey, I want to build automation for my corporate hardcore series. Post this message on X. I can't call it a tweet anymore, right? It's X. So post a message on X just to announce my new video. And it was actually cool because I would just tell it what to do, and then it would open up the web pages. I was using make.com for the automation. It would open up the web pages, it would take control over my browser, right? Open up the web pages and actually click through the interface for the website make.com to build the automation for me, right? That's just one way of leveraging Cowork, right? So those 3 scenarios is how I used it. A lot of other people are using it for different things. And you may find as we progress through this series that, oh, the UI is fine for me, right? Because UI is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm really not a developer. I don't want it to have access to any of my systems. Right. And then Cowork, that's maybe too much. From a corporate perspective, we use Claude Code in our everyday work to create Jira stories, right? Update those Jira stories, post content on our Confluence pages. One of my guys in China went one step further and started creating agents to actually execute Terraform commands within GitHub Actions, right? So he just sits there and he types in, I need to deploy a new application load balancer in AWS US East 2 in this account. He tells that, his agent takes it, sends it up to GitHub. There's like an AI in GitHub. It does it, and it deploys the application load balancer for him, right? All through the terminal, right? All through VS Code. So when you think about it from a corporate perspective, there is some value for code to have access to some of your systems, right? And we'll get to that point, right? There's MCP servers and there's skills that you can build and things like that, right? But from a day one, I kind of know what I'm doing. Let's start with the UI and let's start with chats. Right. But before we even start with chats, there's some things you need to do in terms of customizing Claude. Right. And you can actually use Claude to help you with the customization. So when we go back to settings, there's instructions, right? Instructions really are how you tell Claude how you work. So everybody knows about this AI slop, right? Everybody, you hear about it in LinkedIn, you hear about it all over the place and things like that because AI writes a certain way, right? I think somebody I heard on TikTok said, AI, the LLMs are trained on average writing styles, right? So if you're just an average person, you're not going to understand that what AI is outputting is average. You want to be better than average. So what I wound up doing was because I did take some master classes, I took all the papers that I wrote in that master class and threw it into Claude and say, analyze my writing style, right? It analyzed it and I said, give me instructions on how I can add this to the instruction set for Claude. So it effectively imitates my writing style. So when I do things like polish emails, right? So I always ask for it to write things for me for work, right? To write some email stuff, it'll do that for me in my style, right? So when you start getting used to this, right? When you start getting into Claude, you always want to make sure that you build instruction sets for it, right? So use clear and simple language. And I can share this with you because you and I have similar working styles, right? You should use clear and simple language, Spartan information, short and impactful sentences and things like that. Avoid. You see all this stuff? Avoid semicolons, right? Avoid certain words.
Right.
Right. because you know how it writes and you'll see it. So, and then review your response and ensure no M dashes, right? That's the big thing. Mm-hmm. M dashes are all over everything that AI writes. Yep. So that's going to be the first thing that you're going to do, when you set up your UI thing, right? And then you also have to do the same thing when you set up Claude Code because it's a different interface altogether. But that's the first thing I tell everybody is go set up your instructions. There's a bunch of instructions out there that you can start using and tweaking. What I always recommend is as you start working and progressing through Claude, review the instruction sets, right? See if it's still the way you kind of communicate, or if it's still what you want to have it output for you.
Right.
All right. So do that. Projects, we'll get into another episode. This is big, useful. As you can see, I use projects a lot, right? And then obviously Claude Code. There's a Claude Code option in the UI as well, but I prefer having it integrated with VS Code because you have a lot more power with VS Code and the Claude Code integration. And then here, right? This is where I prep for this call, this series, right? Right. I want to create a video series, and this is how I talk to it. Right. I'm just telling it what I wanted to do to actually help build certain things. So again, from a plan perspective, you want to do the yearly plan, the pro plan, because it's going to give you more output, more usage. You're going to see that you're going to run into a lot of these limits very, very quickly, under the free plan. Right. You can use it. You can use it daily. Right, you can use it daily, and it's not gonna hurt it. And what you'll see is, as you start out, you're gonna use up a lot of that usage, and you'll be like, "Man, Chuck, you sold me a bill of goods that I'm eating through these tokens." And it's not about that. It's actually about understanding how you ask the question, right? And you put up a good scenario, right? You have a bunch of these things, these folders that need to be repermissioned. Right, but you can't touch the other ones, right? And you want to make sure that it iterates through it cleanly, right? Because you can't have a misstep along the way, right? So how you chunk that into Claude is going to be key, because at first you'll be like, I want to do this, and this, and then it'll output what you ask it to, right? But then you have to review. I was like, well, this is not really what I want, and you kind of just iterate through there. And as you do this every day, your questions become a lot better. Your questions become a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
And then your output becomes 10 times better.
Makes sense.
All right. So don't get hung up on, man, you made me pay $200 a year for this thing, and it's, I'm just churning through it. It's like, no, think about it. Right. I always tell my kids, right? Like my daughter, my youngest one, she takes a picture of her homework questions, and then she tells ChatGPT, answer this. Like, that's not how it works. It's like, this is not how it works. Right. It just doesn't work like that. You got to be a little bit more detailed because it's going to give you some crap. And she's like, ChatGPT doesn't work. I'm like, why? And she's like, because it gives me wrong answers. I'm like, yeah, because you're not asking it the right question. You're just saying answer this, and it's going to answer whatever you give it, right? So definitely try to use Pro if you can afford it, because I think the free plan is just gonna be too limiting for you. And then the max one, I think at this point, unless you're very affluent and you have $100 a month you could spend, right? It's just definitely not the way to go. The other one, now here's where people get tripped on. Everybody hears about these different models, right? In Claude, there's Haiku, there's Sonnet, and there's Opus, right? Haiku is the fast, simple. Think of it like your Google search, right? I want to ask it a quick question. This is what I do with Gemini all the time, right? I asked this the other day while I was at the supermarket. I was like, which bean is better, garbanzo, black beans, or red kidney beans, right? And that's something for Haiku to use, right? Sure. It's small, it's efficient, it can answer the question because you're not asking it a very complicated question, right? It's kind of your go-to. I just want to answer for this thing, but it's still very capable, right? It's still very capable. Mm-hmm. And it's cheap, right? You don't have to worry about it consuming a lot of your tokens. I live and breathe in the next one, Sonnet, right? So Sonnet is my everyday go-to. Sonnet is my ride or die, right? People trash on Sonnet all the time, but I've never had an issue. You've seen some of my websites that was done with Sonnet. Right? Sonnet just, and again, it all comes down to how you ask the questions, right? This is key. Now, have I hit some limitations? Of course I hit some limitations. But I wasn't asking the right question, right? But I like Sonnet, especially Sonnet 4.7, 4.6. It's great. It works for me. But again, your mileage may vary, right? Because everybody thinks differently. Everybody may be asking questions differently, and things like that. Right. Opus is the beast, right? Opus is the one that it's used for more complex challenges, challenging tasks. I use Opus for my leadership series, right? My tech lead shift. Mm-hmm. I use it for that when I'm doing research type things, right? I ask it questions. I ask it to think about, leadership frameworks and how the impact is for AI. That's for one thing. And then I also use Opus for my job hunting, right? Because I feed it a bunch of different job descriptions and I say, this is my resume. Here's the track that I'm going towards, right? A senior leadership track. How can I help create my resume to really align towards that? Help me with interview questions, more for C-level and things like that. So Opus is going to do that heavy lifting for you, but it's also going to chew up a lot of your usage, right? Okay. Opus eats up a lot of that, right? Because it's churning, right? It's churning that thing. It may help you with your challenge, right? But we'll see, right? We'll start with Sonnet first, sure, and then we'll see where the limitations are. And then we'll pivot and say, okay, the best thing you can do is once you're done with something and you kind of hit a limit, you can say, hey, I want to use this in a new chat. Give me the kind of the highlights of what we're talking about. So then I can use this in a new chat, and that new chat will be Opus, right? And it'll output for you, copy and paste, boom. And you just pick up where you left off, right? So it has that memory.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Any questions so far? Because I know I'm talking a lot.
What I would say is, when I look at the list of your queries, right? And it's, I'm sure a lot of those queries may not have, it's still an open-ended sort of question, and does that also eat into your credits? Like, what it's kind of leaving, the unanswered, or it's just progressing, right? As to what the response is or whatever.
Yeah, so you're talking about memory, right? So in this case, memory. So you'll see I have chats going back way back, right?
Right.
Like I have way back going. Let's see, what's the first one? I think the first one, it's like I'm still going, right? I'm only 5 months back at this point. No, these do not eat up your usage.
Okay.
These do not eat up your usage. Your usage only gets eaten up when you go, like if I go back to, I don't know, tech careers in 2025. If I go back here and look, this was units using Sonnet 4.5, I was like, gonna have I'll say an updated one for 2026, right? As soon as I send that out, it'll read through that memory and it'll start eating up the usage. Got it. Right. So just by having these chats, it's not going to eat up those usage.
Okay.
It's when you're actively conversing with the chat that will eat up your usage. And remember, you have weekly usage and monthly usages, right?
Got it. Okay.
Right, and that's where, like, if you feel like you're getting that's why I told you set up the overage, right? Mm-hmm. So that way, if you feel like you're kind of in the heat of things, you want to make sure you have that buffer for kind of being able to go over what you need to do.
Got it. All
right. So, do you have Claude open now? Because I want you to kind of. You have the free one.
I have I don't have Claude open at the moment, but I can. Wait, let's see. So,
because what I want to do is I want to go through your problem.
Yeah.
And just talk to Claude, right?
Yeah. Let me just go to Claude. All right. I am there.
All right. So go ahead and share that app, that browser.
Yep. See my screen?
Yep. There we go. All right. So go back to Claude. There we go.
You see it?
There it is. There we go. Okay. Onboarding. Install later. Hit install later. Yeah, that's fine. And just Rudy.
Yep.
I just do engineering. That's fine.
Plan engineering project.
I have my own topic. Just do my own topic. The last one on those there. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, later. All right. So you're on Sonnet 4.6. See on the lower right hand corner of the chat window, that's the model that you're using.
Yep.
You can obviously select different ones from that window. We're going to stick with Sonnet 4.6. One thing I want you to select, if you go back down there,
yep,
is select adaptive thinking. Right. Yep. That's a differentiator between why people say Sonnet doesn't work. Right. They don't have that adaptive thinking on there. Yep. So what I want you to do is I want you to type in what you would ask Claude for your specific problem. Right. Just the way I say it is treat it as a consultant. Right. So Claude is your consultant, just the way you explained it before. How would you ask Claude to do that problem solve that problem for you?
God damn it. I'm typing in the dark here.
Perfect. All right, let's see what it comes back with. All right.
Okay, so
Right. So it's writing you PowerShell commands, right, and PowerShell scripts that you can do, right?
Okay, so yeah, also use the UNC prefix to handle over 260 characters. Okay, that's fine. Bulk cursive.
Right. Parallel processing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And an alternative.
Gives you alternatives, right, for larger volumes.
Yeah.
Right. So it just dumped out a bunch of information for you. Does any of it make sense to you?
No, it does. It offers two different methods, right?
Right.
The PowerShell or the iCals. And whichever is easiest, I guess that based on what your volume, the size of your volume, which makes sense, right? Because if I'm dealing with large volumes, this will probably be the best method. So,
right. So this is where most people
see the PowerShell method. You would need to add additional steps, right? So here's the one thing: it requires 7, and then you'll use alternatives for PowerShell. Okay.
5.1 PowerShell 5.1. Right.
Okay.
So here's where most people stop. Right. They give it a task, they output it, and they're like, oh, okay, it gave me some things, let me run with it. What you have to think about Claude is your consultant. Right. So I don't know if you're familiar with the role concept of Claude or even any LLM, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's where you tell the LLM to act like an expert at something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in this case, you want Claude. Do me a favor, paste that prompt into chat. I'm going to do it on my side.
Oh, sure.
Right. To show you the difference. Right. You can do the same after I finish it. We'll paste what I typed into yours.
Yeah.
So let me do a new chat. And then chat. Oops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Hello. It's going to be Google Chrome. Share. Okay. So Sonnet 4.6 adaptive. Boom. That's not what I wanted. Where else chat? This one. I thought I hit copy. Copy? Oh, it won't let me copy. Son of a bitch.
It won't let you copy?
It won't let me copy. Why not? Wow. And this is my, wow, really? It won't let me copy. So let me do this. Let me write this real quick. So you wrote, what would be the...
Oh, you know what? Let me send it to you in the chat in my, on,
I got you. That's I can't, because this is not a Mac. But that's all right. Affecting existing permissions.
Right? Weird. You can't copy.
Yeah, I know. I must have a setting somewhere. Names. Also, want to optimize this to complete this task quickly. All right, so I did the same thing. So now, as it outputs, right? So remember, I told you to treat Claude as a consultant. Right. But Claude is stupid, right? Because it has all this wealth of knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Available to it, and you're just giving it a task to do.
Right.
Right. So what you should be doing with Claude is saying, hey, I want you to be this type of consultant. So you assign it a role.
Okay.
Right. And in this case, who would we typically ask somebody of this caliber to do something? Is it an AD person, or is it a Windows systems engineer? Is it a Windows storage person? Like, who would be the best person to actually give you the right answer for this?
Probably a Windows systems engineer.
Right. Oh. So if you do acting as an expert Windows, say Microsoft Windows.
Are you sharing your screen?
Sharing my application.
I don't see it.
See it? All right, hold on.
Let me stop sharing. Oh, there we go. I see it now.
You see it now? Okay. Acting as an expert Windows system engineer / architect, right? Because it's going to be key, right? Because there's a big difference between architects and engineers, right? So you want to kind of mix both. So acting as a expert Microsoft Windows systems engineer / architects, analyze my previous prompt for errors and opportunities. This is how I always say opportunities for efficiency. Right. Now remember, this is still Sonnet 4.6, right? We're going to see the difference between Sonnet and Opus, because again, there's going to be limitations for Sonnet. But you see how it's taking a little bit longer, right? It's just thinking a little bit more in depth.
Yeah.
Because you're now telling it, it's like, you're not just going to pull up information from Microsoft. You need to think about the ask, right? And see what it says. Right. Let me zoom in here. Right. Right. Several errors exist. Right. Also here's the breakdown. iCal's deny syntax was wrong. Right. Kerber's token refresh was omitted, which is key for Windows.
Okay.
Right. This is key. Right. Because Kerber's tickets expire. Right. That's key. Right. So it came back with a lot more detail. Right. In terms of what you needed to do. Right. Running 10 concurrent iCal processes against a single file server creates IO contention. Right. You don't want to impact performance while you're doing this stuff. Right. So, okay. Now based on this information, how would you recommend approaching this task to ensure there is no impact to the environment, doesn't overwrite existing permissions, and completes. Now this is going to be subjective. Right, that last one's going to be subjective because we don't know how long it's going to take. Right, and I'll explain to you how we could probably make this a little bit better, but we'll start with this. Right. So again, I'm just continuing leveraging Claude as my consultant. Right, just like you would do a human, you just treat it the same way. And this is where people miss out on the usage of Claude. Right, they just treat it as a machine. They're like, hey, dummy, do this. Right. Right. We've seen those TikToks of those AI robots, and they're just pushing them to kind of show the balance and things like that, right? But the robot has feelings. Stop kicking me, right? This is kind of the same thing. Treat it like you would treat any other consultant.
Yeah.
Right. You're paying money for it. Ask the questions.
Yeah.
Right. So now it gives you a little bit more detailed information. Right. Yeah. It just didn't spit out PowerShell code. Right. It said, oh, there's some pre-work you got to do, Rudy. There's some pre-work you got to do. Right. And it just continues running through this. Right. So you see the difference in terms of how it approaches it. And now, mind you, here's the other caveat, right? This output is based on how I interact with Claude.
Right.
Right. Because I run a Windows environment as well. Right. So it kind of knows me already. So it's building this information up from my previous sessions. Right, because I didn't put it into a project. I just put it into my list of chats. Right, so it kind of knows where I'm coming from and aligns towards that. Right, and it gives you kind of timing expectations. Now the other thing we're not going to do today, right, because it's actually since this is corporate work, you really shouldn't be doing this, but we can probably redact some information. The best next step for this, right, is to export all your volumes, right, and the size of those volumes, and feed it into Claude. It's like, well, here, Claude, here's what I'm actually working with. Right. I have like 10,000 folders, right, varying sizes. Maybe you already have this report of some sort, right, that you can just say, all right, here's what I'm working with. Now, can you analyze how long this would actually take? Right, and then it'll continue doing it. Right. The other thing a lot of people miss is they'll do this, right? They'll say, oh, okay, cool, and they'll kind of go off to work. And then they'll come back and they'll go, oh, I'm going to do a new chat. Instead of going back into here and saying, hey, now that I have blah, 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 now that I have this information, analyze, look for opportunities for efficiencies and things like that. That's why I have so many, right? You asked me about, is this using up my consumption? No, right? Like my polished email one, this is just a long running, right? It's just long going.
Yeah.
Right. It's not, it just only starts consuming the usage as I use it.
No,
right?
it's what you just said is pretty key. I mean, it's maintaining the conversation.
Right.
So because if I start a new query, it's just that, a new query. It's not, has no idea as to what you're
Right.
you know, what you were talking about. It's a whole other partition or slice or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But yeah, that makes sense.
So now if we take this to Opus, so then I go, I want to take this chat to Opus, please. I'm going to show you the difference. Right. So look, it's doing everything we asked it to do. Right. Mm-hmm. It added the stuff that it said, hey, you should actually be doing this as well. Right. So now I'm going to switch here and oops. So I'm going to go to Opus 4.7. Right. Actually, I'm going to create a new chat because it's just easier if I do it that way.
So the action to Opus, it has to be deliberate. It's not going to do it for you.
Correct.
It's going to summarize, and then you can take that and then move it to Opus.
Correct. Okay. Correct. So now we have a new chat, right? Strictly defined on Opus. And let's see the difference. Now I see how it's taking longer, right? And it actually tells you, hey, I'm going to be busy. Let me come back if you want, but I'm going to be busy, right? So it continues to go. So based on what we've done so far, and while this is working, what surprised you in what you've seen so far?
No, what surprised me is that what you had mentioned earlier is, asking it to act as, whatever it is that you want, so that it presents itself as that agent or whatever. Right. And it puts it in that role, and it gives you a whole different, aspect or response. I mean, I wouldn't have, I thought automatically it would have given me the best answer, but kind of like pushing it to say, hey, you know what, act as this, so that you can respond with, from that perspective, and that way I can get the response I'm looking for.
Yeah, and that's been key, especially for me when I was doing my GCP certification and I was leveraging Claude for my GCP certification. I would tell it that you are an expert GCP architect. You're helping me with my certification. Help me with tips and tricks and things like that, right? Because again, the model's stupid, right? Because it has this wealth of information, and it's just saying, oh yeah, you want this? Here's some scripts, right? But once you tailor it to a specific role, right, and it adds that insight even more. Now it focuses and narrows it, right? So think about a library, right? You can go to the librarian and say, I want this, and it'll give you a book. The librarian will give you a book. But you say, I want something from U.S. world history, from World War II, prior to World War II, that narrows the field down a little bit, right? Yeah. It doesn't have this, right? That's the way you have to start looking at it. And you're at a library, you have so much information, you're going to narrow down what you want, so that way you can get better responses, right? So you saw the response took a lot longer with Opus, right? And it's giving you a little bit more detailed, right? Your ACE evaluation order is nuanced, explicit allow in a child, right? It gives you a lot more information, right? Your team needs to troubleshoot, right? Long path mechanics and things like that. Gaps to fill, audit policies, right? And some of this may be relevant, some of this may not be. But it's something to really think about and think and name DFS namespaces, right? Did you consider that at all? I don't know, right?
No.
DFSR replicated content. That's big, right? All those changes have to replicate.
Sure.
Right. And then again, throttle sizing and things like that. So it outputs a lot more information. Now it talks about Entra ID because again, this is my environment, right? So it knows more about me, and but you can see because I've been working with it for so long, it adds that flavor into me. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the same exercise with your free account.
Yeah.
Right. And start playing around with it. Yeah. You're going to hit some limits, right? You're going to hit some limits right off the bat, right? But just know the differences, right? Yeah. And it may actually kind of push you to say, well, let me pay for $20 a month for 3 months and see if it'll solve this problem for me, right? Yeah. Is $60 worth it? I don't know, right? But that's the difference, right? So based on what we talked about, anything unclear so far in terms of what we've done to date?
No, I mean this was pretty eye-opening. with regards to how I was doing it before. It was just like, kind of like, all right, ask a question, spits it out. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, if I don't, maybe I might ask for a little different, could you, but the level of detail when you're asking it more in depth is just a whole completely different perspective that I hadn't realized. So
yeah, and I want you. What I want you to do before the next episode is I want you to continue using it and do different scenarios. Right. You have different technologies in your company, right? Instead of using Google, right, go to Claude and say, "Hey, Claude, you're this expert, right? What would you do here? What would you do in this scenario?"
Yeah.
Right. I would also say have it write some documentation for you, right? And see what the output's like and see how you can tailor that output a little bit more. I would show you some stuff here, but I don't want to show the audience. Maybe I'll show you afterwards. Some of the things that it wrote for me that I was actually able to take into my own workplace, right, and present to senior leadership, and they're like, "Wow, this is amazing." I was like, "Yeah, it's my ideas." Right. It was my ideas, but it just formulated in a way that you would understand, you as the senior leadership, right? Because we think at a different level, right? Because we're more technical. Senior leaders think at a more strategic level, right? But it's still our ideas. It's just we have a consultant writing it for us, which is no different than what organizations are doing today.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I always say use Claude as your consultant. Make sure that you're defining the role that you wanted to act as in that chat. Don't leave that chat, right? If you want to go back to kind of continue, right? Don't leave that chat. Stay there. And if you want to do something new, create a new chat.
Yeah.
Right. And then dig deeper.
Yeah.
Right? So do that, right? Do that this week. Just kind of continue futzing around with it. This case as an example, right? Just
for sure.
Right. No. Do that. And, the next episode we'll continue going through different prompts and continue, the prompt engineering, right? Because it's not so much about the question, right? It's how you position the question to ensure that the LLM understands what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Especially for us technologists.
No, for sure.
Because sometimes we're like in our own heads and like it won't, But what I found, and I actually had a conversation with one of the guys on my team. It actually makes us all better in how we ask questions.
Yeah.
Right, because it makes us take a step back and be like, well, this is what I wanted to do.
Right.
Because you saw in your first prompt, it just outputted scripts.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know any better, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to take these scripts, and you may screw up your whole environment.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, well, Claude told me to do it, and I've seen people do that. Hell, I've done that in the beginning, right?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but I mean, I would have taken it and created a stage or.
Well, not you. I mean, just
but you know what I'm saying. But I could see exactly where you're going with that. But like, oh, this is gold, right? I could just take that and run with it, and then you don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. We've been around long enough to know that.
Long enough to know. Yeah.
And look, I know we're focusing on Claude, right? But this is really the same process throughout any of the LLMs, right? Whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Gemini.
I'm thinking conceptually, like, for other ways. I'm like, if I could use this for the stock market.
Well, I actually did I said, act as a quantitative analyst, right?
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. Now, of course, it was using terminology I had no clue about. Right? So, slow your roll. But look, people do it, right? People do it already.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? They leverage these LLMs for that. I mean, I remember when ChatGPT came out, I started trying to do it for horse racing.
Yeah.
Right. But the challenge there was I didn't have the data to feed into it. Right. Sure. It was just using public data. Yeah. Now, I also went to Equibase. I was like, all right, how much is this data? It's like $450 a year. Right. Do I want to spend $450 to make what? Like, it's like you kind of. Right. There's opportunities. There's definitely opportunities. Right. And this is the beauty about it. Right. Everybody has their different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And everybody will refine their own instances to the way they think. You saw my output was way different than yours because it already knows me. It knows my environment. It brought up Entra ID. You never even mentioned Entra ID. Mine did because I deal with Entra ID every day.
Because what my situation is on-prem as opposed to Entra. Right. I could see how that could, it can transition for that. But absolutely, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's good. Yeah,
so play around with it. Yeah, play around with this. Play around with it this week. Right. We have another session at the end of this week.
Yep.
Let's see where you are at that point. And we'll continue churning through it, right? My goal for you is to continue leveraging this and see the value in the pro plan, right?
Yeah.
Continue playing with the free one, right? You may eat up some tokens before Friday, and that's fine. We'll use my plan, but just know that you'll get different outputs from my plan than yours, because again, it knows a little bit better. Right. Play around with it. Think about what you want to see next. If there's anything you want to see next, let me know. We'll work through it. But yeah, I think this is good. Right. Good conversation. I think I already see your brain churning.
Oh no, I'm already thinking about a whole bunch of shit. Right?
Yeah. As you should.
Yeah. Why didn't I do that?
Even leveraging it for writing emails for you, right? This is what I want to say.
I'm gonna get that.
Right? But make it more professional. Right? I've done that so many times already with Claude, because I was like, here's what I really want to say. Can you just make this a little bit cleaner? I was like, yeah. And it'll tell you, right? This is what I like about Claude. The difference between Claude and ChatGPT, and I always tell people, it's like the Mac versus PC commercials back in the day. Right? Oh, I'm a Mac, blah, blah, blah. I'm a PC. ChatGPT will be just like, yeah, dude. Yeah. You want to say that? Go for it. Like, it'll write it for you. Claude will be like, Claude's your like snarky little brother, right? It's like, nah, bro, you don't want to say that. Like, it's like, no, it's very snarky. It'll come back to you and say, yeah, you don't want to pitch over the fence to somebody else. Like you're putting blame somewhere here. Just write it this way. It's more political and things like that. But again, I've trained, my instance to kind of be the way it is. Right. It learned about me over time. And as you do this, right, as you continue using Claude, I would say maybe 3 months in, have it analyze how you ask questions. Right. Because once it does that, then you can build more instructions. So that way it always does certain things, like writing emails is always going to be in this format, right? Or writing documentation, it's always going to be this way. That'll help. So as you continue digging deeper, I'd say 3 months is a good amount of data for it to understand. You'll see that it'll significantly improve your work and maybe your life.
I'm going to try to definitely add it as a daily routine. Try to spend some time doing it, 10, 15 minutes.
No, you should have it up with you. Literally. You know what I do when I log in? I open up Chrome, I log into Claude, and I have it right there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
You should, because if you don't treat it like a workout, treat it like your work companion.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. I got a meeting I got to run to, but thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, man. We'll talk on Friday. Later. And that was Rudy. His first time really using Claude, right? So you just heard him. He was doing just little tasks, and you saw his shift, the shift that he had. You saw it in his eyes, and he was thinking, he's like, holy shit. That's how you actually do it, right? And he saw the differences in output between Sonnet and Opus. Now, granted, my output was significantly different than his because, again, I've said it time and time again on the episode. I've trained my model to understand my environment. It doesn't understand his environment, right? It understands my environment. The missing component for that work that was done is understanding the volumes that it has to work with, right? So if he outputs that into a report and then uploads it into Claude, obviously redacted to ensure that there's no private corporate information in there, right? It'll actually give him a lot more detail, right? So, right, Rudy's work problem was too vague to build a good prompt around, right? So we pushed him a little bit more to get specifics, right? To really show what the demo was, because vague input produces vague output, right? We saw it when he put in, he signed up for the free account. You saw it live. He signed up for the free account. He said, I want to do this. And he gave him PowerShell scripts because, hey, why not? Right. And it was fine. But if you didn't know any better, you could have just used it and broke things. So, we compared ChatGPT to Claude, to Gemini. They're all the same. It's just you have to understand how the prompts are, right? We saw the difference between Sonnet and Opus. And this is going to be a continuing series. I gave Rudy some tasks to do, and we're gonna see what happens on the next episode. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching the show, and I will see you next time.